and we're going to assault it with a variety of threats.
Now what you're starting to see is bullets that are being destroyed. You stopped all those rounds.
Hi, I'm John LaPlume. I'm returning with FirstSpear TV. This time we're going to be talking about our UC plate. UC stands for undercover. The idea behind this plate is for discretionary environments, everyday wear, very thin as you can see, and if you take a look at the scale here, it's extremely light. In addition, it does some special threats. It carries NIJ ratings for stab and slash protection. Out here we're just going to be posing some different threats out of small arms against these plates to see how they do and maybe show you a little bit about where high density polyethylene is at in terms of scientific development and applications of this material. If you're not familiar with our Deceptor carrier, it's very lightweight, it's minimalistic materials, it's designed for everyday long-term wear, and in particular it can be worn underneath clothing to give you a very discreet appearance. So we're assessing the UC plate now against the 44 Magnum, 240 grain, jacketed hollow point. As you can see, there is some deformation on the back, but otherwise the plate's intact and there's no complete penetration from a 44 Magnum at close quarters. We're now going to engage the UC plate with 357 SIG at close quarters. We'll do this as a multi-strike engagement. We're using 125 grain full metal jacketed flat nose. There's no penetrations from three 357 SIGs in close proximity to each other. This time we're going to use a 230 grain gold dot hollow point, 45 ACP. You'll see that there's no penetrations again. We're going to try and step it up a little bit now with 147 grain bonded jacketed hollow point 9mm from Winchester called their Ranger line. And if you look, you can almost see across the front the jackets on the surface from those 5 strikes. But if you look on the back, you're going to see that there's no failure, no complete penetration. After successfully stopping the Ranger, we're going to see if we can stop 124 grain full metal jacket, NATO 9mm. Again, there's no penetration, and if you look here real closely, you can see where one round actually stopped on the surface, keyholed out in the carrier. The Cordura fabric wrapping the plate stopped it. One of the reasons that FirstSpear likes to wrap these plates is the Cordura is a lot more consistent. It holds the plate together when it goes through these extreme multiple impact engagements.
Now that the UC plate has been shot by multiple rounds, we're going to look into it. First, weigh it, and I believe it went from 1.3 pounds to 2 pounds. As we've shown before, strike face has multiple impacts and no penetration on the back. This particular system is a polyethylene, an ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene that's been pressed together. And earlier we talked about soft armor. And I've got a sample of some soft armor material here. And these soft armor layers are layered together to stop bullets in a soft, flexible, concealable system. But in this case, we have a hard panel. And the advantage of the hard panel is that when you take a soft panel and a bullet impacts it, it's absorbing energy in its X and its Y direction. But what we also find is in its Z direction, there's also absorption. So while the bullet is hitting layer 1 and penetrating through to layer 2, layer 20 back here is already absorbing that energy in that Z energy direction and dissipating that energy, absorbing its kinetic energy, absorbing its energy of motion, thus stopping the projectile. One thing we can do on a hard armor system is we can now compress this material. So under heat and controlled temperature, we can now press this together so it's a much more dense product, thus improving its Z energy absorption. So when Johnny was talking about the fact that this is such a light plate with such high performance, part of that is due to the pressing of these materials, thus creating the ultimate system. I can start pulling back some of the first few layers of this multi-layer system. Remember before you saw mushroom bullets, you saw bullets that were starting to deform. Now what you're starting to see is bullets that are being destroyed because they get so much better fiber engagement. Because of the Z energy absorption, it's literally like hitting a brick wall. So now you'll notice that the mushroom has turned into something totally different where the whole projectile is literally splattering out on the first few layers. And that's what's given it such high performance. This is literally some of the splattered, flattened lead that you're going to find in just the first few layers. You can still see the number of layers and the thickness of material that's still virgin in this package.
As you've seen, we've been pushing the limits with the UC plate. We did 30 rounds of 9mm, as well as other larger scale threats, and there were no significant penetrations to the plate. There's no failure penetrations on the back of the plate, or what we call CPs, complete penetrations. In an effort to step it up further, we're going to put a 187 grain 300 Blackout suppressed into the plate and see if we can induce a failure from that. And I'm not really sure if the plate was going to be able to stop this or not after the carnage that it's gone through, and there's no penetration. 300 Blackout, 187 grain at point blank distance. We're going to fire 5 rounds of 300 Blackout now into the vest and see if we can induce a failure yet again. We varied the positions and the angles of the strikes to see where we could find if there was a weak spot in the plate. And still there are no penetrations on the back of the plate after 6 strikes of 187 grain 300 Blackout. Bearing in mind that this plate was never designed or built with this threat in mind, we're going to up the ante now with 150 grain full metal jacket 300 Blackout. There's an extreme deformation in the plate. You can see where the Cordura nylon that encases the plate has been torn, but there is not a complete penetration. The round has been stopped in the plate.